All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I am not going to do a ton of talking because we have some really great panelists, but I just want to give my background. I am a founder here in Milwaukee. I previously led ops for a couple companies. I launched a company in the venture space that we exited in June, and that company was really focused on the inefficiency of who gets venture funding. But going through that, one of the questions that really came up for me was the inefficiency in how people get venture funding. And that's how I got connected to the equity crowdfunding space, the RegCF space. And it is an exceedingly flexible and accessible vehicle to raise capital. It's an opportunity where you can be, as a founder, you can find out if your immediate community wants to invest in you. They can in ways they couldn't before. From an investor perspective, you don't need to be an accredited investor. So some of those missed opportunities for high returns and support opportunities are gone. You can be an investor for as little as $100. You can lead a round for $1,000. So there's a lot of interesting opportunities within that as well. The other thing I really like about it is that it fits wherever a founder or entrepreneur is. This is right now, a lot of what we see on the equity crowd fund is focused at kind of the launch space. That seems to be the niche that is popular, but it's not just for that. We've seen a equity crowd fund used as part of a Series B. Mercury Bank did that, and they used that as a retention tool and a biz dev tool for their existing clients. They raised $120 million, but carved out $5 million for their existing clients. And it's also available for small business. So in a way where typically small business thinks about loans as the way that they capitalize, they can lean into their constituents. There's a really cool story about a taco shop that was looking for, $100,000 in capital improvements and was able to raise it from the 3-block radius around where they are in a very short amount of time. So there's just some very cool, flexible use cases. I have become enamored with it. I'm happy to chat with anybody beyond that, but that's not really who we're here to hear from today. So first, I'm just going to introduce our panel. We have Daniel Cruz. Daniel is the founder and CEO of WashBNB, which is a Milwaukee startup. They are a Techstars company. They just went through the Techstars Atlanta program, which is a big deal, especially here in Milwaukee. Daniel's currently raising on WeFunder, has a few more days left. How many days?
Till Monday, so 3 days
till Monday.
left, yeah.
So everyone in this room could literally go to wefunder.com right now. You could search WashBNB and you could be an investor in Daniel's company. Next, we have Tony Wilkins. Tony is joining us from Chicago. Tony's a part of Standing Oaks Venture Partners, and Tony is an investor. Tony is the main reason I wanted Tony to come here is because I am happy to chat about RegCF and equity crowdfunding all day. Occasionally, there is pushback from investors and lawyers about this doesn't work in the traditional way we do things, and Tony is utilizing RegCF in an interesting way. So, Tony, is there just how did I do on your intro? Is that a good intro?
You did a good intro, and I would just say what you said about all the stuff you said about RegCF, ditto.
Okay. Thank you. And then last panelist is Ali Schwebel. Ali very recently took over as CEO of Vibrant Body Company, which is a clean intimates company here in Milwaukee. And Ali is currently or formerly also with Beauty Counter. She did some amazing sales volume with Beauty Counter. And Ali is going to be doing a RegCF raise. So we're going to get to hear from a few different perspectives. We have Daniel, who's nearing the end of his RegCF raise. We have Tony, who is involved on the investor side. And we have Ali, who has chosen this path to complement her fundraise as well. So Ali, anything else I should add about you? Okay, thank you. So thank you all for being here. So my first question is going to actually be for you, Ali. We're going to start on kind of the front end of the process. So you have explored fundraising and you saw the different pathways ahead of you, and you looked at RegCF, equity crowdfunding, and decided it was a good pathway for you. Can you just tell your perspective on why this was a path you chose?
Well, at Vibrant Body Company, we are focused on women, specifically on certified clean intimates, which is bras, underwear, and panties. But at the end of the day, we're about supporting women in all different ways. For myself, I'm a mom. I'm also a wife. Creating a flexible work environment was really important for me, and I want Vibrant to be the place that women want to work in Milwaukee because they're going to have that kind of support. So the idea of giving women the opportunity to not only purchase our products, but if you fall in love with a product, don't you want to be a part of it? Like, as an example, I will use, so I'm a Rent the Runway member, and I have been for years, and I think most of you are probably familiar. They just had their IPO, first IPO to have 3 female C-suites, which is really exciting, and I'm so excited for them. But honestly, my first thought was, wait a minute, like, I've been with you for 3 years now. I stayed with you through COVID, and you're doing this IPO, and I would have been a part of that company. I would have loved to invest, and the stickiness that creates. If I invested in Rent the Runway, then I probably would keep my membership for a long time. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm not really using it anymore. So for me, like, the stickiness that it applies to your consumer. And one of the things we're really focused on at Vibrant is we are going to start focusing on advocates, which is creating an affiliate network of women who are going to recommend our products to their friends and family. And the best way for them to, you know, make a little money, but then also have the ability to buy into something they believe in, because what we are really at its core is a company that is on a mission to educate women about what is in their potential first layer right now, the toxins and the lack of regulation. So when women find something that's an amazing solution for them, to give them the opportunity to not only make money, but then also invest in that company, which is really super fascinating to me, and it got us really excited.
Thank you. And then I'm going to come over to you, Daniel, now that you are kind of nearing the end of your equity crowdfund. I want to hear about the process from your perspective, and particularly, literally the logistics of it. Like, was it complicated? Was it annoying to do? But also the process from externally. Like, what kind of signals did it send? And what have you heard from lawyers and investors as you've been going through your fundraising?
Yeah, I think process driven, it's one of these things that you, as a startup founder, especially a first timer, you want to see a lot of pitches and take a lot of swings. And that's how I describe the process of building an equity crowdfunding campaign. You're practicing storytelling. You're putting your narrative down so people can read it or digest it visually. You're recording a video. You're jumping in front of a panel. Actually, Tony was on our investor panel where early on 2 investors interview the founder, ask a lot of tough questions around the business, and then that video actually gets posted to WeFunder, and so it's visible in our campaign. So after we're done, you can go there and see a video of me presenting about the company, and then a video of Tony, and I forget who else was on there, but asking questions about the process, where we think we're going, and then they wrote a small statement, some pros that I think that the founder has, and then some potential cons, or some potential things to watch out for this company in the future. So process-wise, WeFunder has great system of prompts to get you there, which I love that. It really helped make the process digestible and easy. Their tagline is, you can start raising money within 15 minutes, which is very true. And clearly you're going to have to put a lot more effort and the time into building your deck and telling your story about that. Signals-wise, we came in, we launched our private version of our campaign in conjunction with the deregulation move on March 15th. It was a crazy time. There's a lot going on at WeFunder internally, trying to adapt to regulation really quickly, and then move from that in. I think we launched publicly in May or potentially early June. And I think we have nothing but great signals. I talked to a lot of venture firms, investors who were very confused around March, like what was happening. But in the last couple of months, both publicly on Twitter and privately, what I'm hearing is a lot of, hey, there are a lot of positive signals here. We get the SPV thing, which all of your investors get rolled into one vehicle, which shows up as one line item on your cap table. That means every time I need to issue more shares or bring on a new investor, I don't have to run and get 250 signatures. I just go to my lead investor and get one signature. All of your investors signing pro rata rights, giving their voting shares up to your lead investor, which is somebody that you want to have, be very company friendly, but also be the voice of your crowdfunding cohort as well. I think these are all like really, really great things. And as we've gone through this year, we've seen a lot more positivity behind that. And also it shows, I love to say this, when I have a bad day, because you have a lot of bad days in the startup world, right? You have like a bad day and a good day always happen like the same day or the same week or whatever that works. When I have a really rough day, like sometimes I'll finish my day, I have a reminder in my phone, and it says, go read your crowdfunding messages. There are about 90 people who I do not know that are mostly Airbnb hosts that have written into our campaign page, I cannot wait for this product to get to me. I'm so excited to invest in this. I'm telling all my friends, I wish WashBNB was here right now in my market. I'm struggling with this program. I mean, that is like rocket fuel for your ego, for your boost, like to get you to your next level. So I love having that interaction. And I think finally the opportunities that have come to us through crowdfunding campaign, even if it's not a check, I've had angel investors put $200 in the round and say, let's have a meeting. I'm interested. I want to talk to you. I've had manufacturers in our space come and say, hey, like, we've got a great product we think will work really well for you. I just put $500 in your account. Let's talk about the future of your needs here. Customers coming through that space as well too. So one of our early angel investors, like, he was at Cintas for a long time. He gave us some resources from Cintas. Say, hey, if you can execute like this company, you have the potential to reach that size and potentially a similar multiple for a service-based business. And this is all really great things. So the education, the connections, the networking that have come through the campaign page have also been way more valuable, I think, than the $180,000 that we've raised to date.
Thank you. And you touched on something, so I'm going to go to you, Tony. We're going to get into compliance a little quicker than I planned to, but Daniel touched on it a little bit about kind of cap table. So I'm going to make you put on not your hat, but the voice of investors or lawyers who maybe are a little more skeptical. What have you heard? Like, why do we sometimes hear people be shy around equity crowdfunding or nervous around it from a RegCF perspective?
That's a sore spot, because one of my favorite, closest attorneys in Chicago, who I love dearly and knows the early stage space, turned down a proposal to put a WeFunder pool together in a company that I was the lead investor for.
Okay.
I was like, what are you talking about? This thing is sewn up so tight. This is all the corporate hygiene you need in one spot. To be fair, he had not heard about crowdfunding. I kind of dropped it in on him at the last minute, and it was a smallish raise. So to do the diligence would have burned up all the expenses of trying to figure out how to do the small raise. That said, I did, in my past, spend 6 years at Bank of New York Mellon, which is nothing but regulatory. I took 120 online classes about regulatory and compliance in 6 years. It's like a class and a half a month online. I got better things to do. The good news is, because there's always a silver lining, is that of early stage investors, I'm probably the most sensitive to all the things that can go so wrong so fast, so quickly, if you don't do it properly. You know, I tell people, look, if you roll through a stop sign, the blue lights are probably not going to come and come pull you over. If you do it at 4 o'clock in the morning, in a suburb, you can roll through a light and nobody will bother you. But if you blow through a red light downtown Milwaukee in the middle of the day, somebody's going to pull you over. Similar analogy is, if you're a small company, you're raising $75,000 from your friends and you're passing out stock like it's bingo cards, the SEC is not going to bother you. It's just not a problem. It's not an issue. But if your company starts to grow and now you want to raise $250,000 or $500,000 or $1.2 million, the VCs who are putting that money together for your now real business are going to go, what were you thinking? How does Aunt Jane have a majority ownership in your company? You know, she's not a accredited investor. She talks to her hairdresser about whether or not to sign these docs. And you screwed yourself up. You know, I think you Packers fans will appreciate this, that defense wins championships, offense wins games. Good corporate hygiene, adherence to regulatory requirements, and the SEC and the DOL, and all the things associated with raising money that we don't think of as entrepreneurs. WeFunder, through a long period of time of working with these regulations as they were originally initiated, has crossed all those I's and dotted all those T's so that you can raise money in 15 minutes legitimately. And as the legal and banking community get more comfortable with it, I'm confident they will understand that the SPVs, the special purpose vehicles that are put together to be a single line on the cap table of a founder who's raising money is just like an accredited investor. Now, that's hard to believe when you think about the documents that are necessary to become an accredited investor and the increasing attention to documenting whether or not somebody is an accredited investor. But I would say, trust me, believe if it's true, but read every document on the WeFunder platform, as I did when I first couldn't believe that this was for real. I've urged one founder to go onto the WeFunder platform and was her lead investor. So I read everything there was associated with it with a very critical eye to go, what could go wrong? Zip. When I went to do this one SPV for this $500,000 raise, I had, to your point, a number of friends and family of this founder who said, oh, I want to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And we figured a way around it, which if you ask me privately, I will tell you, but not tell you exactly what happened. But we figured out a way to do it, which is kind of the old school way of making it happen. WeFunder, Regulation CF, and I think even our national administration is much more friendly toward what WeFunder calls, and I love this tagline, you may have a different tagline today, but the one I like and am familiar with is democratizing the American dream, right? So the stories you told and the stories you're going to tell make WeFunder kind of like LinkedIn for early stage founders, where you can raise your visibility and attract people who understand what you're trying to accomplish, who get it, who resonate with it, who want to support it, who want to establish it in their local communities. And it is essentially add water and stir. So I know add water and stir is probably difficult for attorneys to get with, but let me tell you, as a weather-beaten executive in the institutional space where I have seen bad things go wrong, I'll give you an example of bad things going wrong, which made me look at crowdfunding more carefully. At Bank of New York Mellon, which is the largest custody bank in the world, at our size, when we slip, there are attorneys who are ready to go in and litigate so that they can just have us settle. And our settlements are staggering. They are worth the effort to go after Bank of New York Mellon for making a mistake. We made a modest mistake in London one time. I won't go into the details, but it was one of those mistakes where you go, really? You're going after us for that? The price tag was $145 million. I saw a wiggle in my bonus that year because of that small mistake. And then we had classes on how not to make that mistake. When you're small enough, these mistakes don't make a big deal. And most entrepreneurs don't think that they're going to be multi-billion-dollar companies. But I'm fortunate enough to be an investor in one. How many of you all know about Fetch Rewards? Yes. How many of you use Fetch Rewards? Come on. So Fetch Rewards was started in Milwaukee or Madison?
Madison.
So I met the guys at Fetch Reward in 2013. Amazing, astonishing. I invested. They're probably going to be one of Madison's. They're not going to start off as a unicorn. They're going to be a quadruple unicorn, the valuation today. I guarantee you Wes Schroll did not think he was going to be a $4 billion valuation company when they got started. Good news, John Philosophus and I, when we met with him and started talking about how to raise the money to build it up, John's background is Wall Street, as is mine, more LaSalle Street. And John and Great Oaks Venture Capital took the lead in making sure that Fetch squeaked from day one when it was just an idea about how to get people through the grocery store lines faster than anybody else. Now that business has rotated around a million different times, but now it's a multi-billion-dollar valued company. If the docs had not been right from the beginning, we would not have been able to attract the massive follow-on investment that we had. So it's about defense, it's about starting off properly and making sure that your ducks are in a row. And I will tell you, I would pound the table, but I'm afraid I'll mess stuff up here. If you're an attorney, if you're a banker, if you're an institutional investor, take a weekend, grab something warm, grab something adult to drink, and read every document on the WeFunder platform, and you will say to yourself, oh my goodness, they've got this thing sewn up. That may be a longer answer than you were.
That was a good one. No, that was good.
And we're done.
That was good. No, that's a mic drop. I'm going to move into kind of strategic conversations. And so the first thing I want to talk about is just like the access and from the investor side and why that matters. So Allie, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but like I know why it's useful for you to raise capital. Why is it from your side important to have every person have access to give you that capital? Why does that matter to you?
I think you shared with me when we had the conversation the first time that there are people like me just walking around who don't ever have access to support the companies that they love every day. And these days, everyone wants to support a company that stands for something, that has a mission, that you're a part of something that's doing good, and you want to feel like you're a part of it. And to be able to give people, myself included, the opportunity to truly be a part of something that they love and they enjoy, and to feel like they're just a part of something bigger is really important to me. And to give access to these people like myself whom aren't institutional investors, who've never don't even know the first thing about how to make that happen. To be able to be like, oh, you can go to this website, use your credit card, drop in, like, I love this company, I want to support with $100, and just be able to do that. To be able to easily have access to support the companies that you love and the products that you love is so important to me and to our company. It's about supporting women and giving them the ability to invest their money in something if they want. And I think historically women haven't had access, or the education, I know I haven't, about how to do that and feel uncomfortable in that space. But we know what we love, and we know the products that we want to support, and to be able to have that access, like going back to Rent the Runway, like I would have totally loved to support that company. I would have put money in because it's something I believe in. It's something I use every single day. And I feel really strongly that we need to allow women to have that access and to make it really easy. It was a no-brainer. When you brought it up to us, it was like, no-brainer. This is something we have to do.
Thanks. Daniel, similar question. And I know you kind of touched on this already, but just talking about the positive feedback you're getting from people who will be customers at some point saying, get me this. But like, why is it important to have the crowd fund you? Like, why does that matter from WashBNB's perspective?
I think for me, it really helped balance the power imbalance that there exists between people like Tony that have been doing this for a long time, that control a lot of access to a lot of capital, and first-time people who come and sit in front of a VC really clueless of what to do, of how to do that. And that results in a power imbalance. And there can be abuse in that system, like there can be anytime there are power imbalances. And so bringing a cohort of 280 investors behind me now to the next time I go in front of a VC to talk about a very large check or a very large significant amount of money, I've seen a lot of pitches, I've had a lot of conversations. I had to go through all of these processes that teach me enough about valuations and how to tell our story, how to bring people in. This is a powerful thing. This is a powerful moment for companies, and it's important to have that, I think, behind you. And so I think having validation from a lot of different people brings diversity naturally into that. So you get diversity of where your capital is coming from, who's investing in the company, which is important because you want that to represent, you want your company, as Ali was just mentioning, companies are now community-based. And we're going to see this more and more and more, values-based, communities-based. So we want to make sure that we align with the people that we're serving. Who are our stakeholders? It's community, customers, investors, our own employees. The more people we have in that cohort that we're representing for and we're watching out for, I think the better chance that we have of building something long-term and sustainable, which is important to us.
Tony, I think, well, maybe not Allie and Daniel, but people like me, founders like me, I might need the crowd in order to get something off the ground. For someone like you don't actually need RegCF. You're in a position where you could just be an accredited investor, and RegCF could be a threat. It could be competition. Strategically, how does RegCF integrate with your investment strategy, and why is it useful? Like, well, you don't need it. Why is it useful?
Some of the things that Daniel said are very important. Sustainability of a business depends on diversity of perspective of the people who you serve, right? It also levels the playing field. As an investor, I'm looking for as many perspectives as I can before I write this check. I hate the term angel investor, because when you're writing early checks and very closely involved with a founder, a lot of those conversations are not angelic, right? So before I write a check is when I have to do all my due diligence. The company that we put onto the WeFunder platform, very small company, raised $50,000, just barely made the minimum. But you cannot imagine the questions that came from prospective investors that made me think, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So it made me strategically a more thoughtful investor. Not that I have the answer to it, but that I've thought about it and it was raised, and it improves the potential sustainability of the company as the founder thinks about what do I need to do, who do I need to serve. When you can bring your community to the company, now everybody has a vested interest. Mm-hmm. Everybody is like, well, wait a minute, why are you not on Fetch if you know about it? So you need that kind of thing in a world where the playing field is being leveled because there's more access to information. If we go back to the dark ages of 10 years ago, how did I find deals? It was through my personal network of people that I had come to know over time. I'm doing something with WeFunder where we're trying to educate investors. And the one thing that investors in today's crowdfunding world cannot possibly appreciate is the number of at-bats you can get in terms of looking at deals. Now, because I've been at it for a long time, I average somewhere between 600 and 700 meetings a year, 30 minutes a pop, with founders who want to talk to me, or I'm on a panel, or I'm doing an investor panel on WeFunder. That's a lot of reps, and you can get really good at determining patterns by doing that. Well, hell, if I had WeFunder 25 years ago, I could have just scrolled through and looked at things and got those reps to become a better investor. It took me 30 years. Somebody who's coming on now could take them 3 years to get the same kind of access. Think about what it took to send a letter to your girlfriend in Berlin before WhatsApp. That is the difference between how we did diligence prior to Regulation Crowdfunder to how you can scroll through. And you're going to look at some crappy deals. Trust me, kiss a lot of frogs. Have invested in a few frogs. But the ability to strategically, and if I'm looking at a company and the founder is saying, oh, nobody's doing this in the world but us, search for WashBNB kinds of things. Well, have you heard of this company? Have you heard of that company over there? No. Okay, call me back when you've done some diligence. So it's a tool that was formerly only available to institutional investors who had a great network of people who they could pick up the phone and call. Don't ask me I'm a bad person to get a well-rounded perspective on crowdfunding because I am a dyed-in-the-wool fan.
I will say the fun thing is getting the emails from WeFunder where you can see the companies that are raising. Oh, I've gone down that rabbit hole. I'm like, oh my God, what's this product? I've never heard of this before. Like, I think I need to try this product. Like, it just makes it easy. And it's like, I think this seems pretty like a great idea. Like, I'll just put $100 in. Like, right. You can just, it's like online shopping. You know, it's like you're online shopping. You find something that you like. You put your, you're like, now I'm part of this company and I'm going to tell my friend about it. And it's similar with Vibrant. It's like, if you love the product and now you're an investor, of course you're going to tell your best friend about it. Of course you're going to tell your mom. You're going to like, you guys got to check this product out. And, oh, by the way, I'm part owner in the company.
Right.
So
right.
it creates that sense of community that you're talking about, and it's just access that was never there before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how many of us think that Harvard or Stanford grads are the best people to identify business opportunities in the north side of Milwaukee or the south side of Chicago? Removing bias from where deals are sourced from, removing a lot of this bias is opening up a whole new world of opportunities of where businesses can exist and thrive. WashBNB is a great example of that. Like living in San Francisco, I never could have afforded to open a company like WashBNB and have a year and a half of runway to just find product market fit, find customers, find a way that makes this business click together. Here in Milwaukee, I have a 1,000 square foot warehouse that costs $900 a month. Like there's different perspectives, and I didn't go to those schools. I don't have the network of VCs to raise from. I didn't work at Facebook, and so it makes all the difference. Like having access to this first $180,000-$200,000 of capital is super meaningful for us, and it just doesn't exist. It's so much harder to get there without something like a WeFunder access to capital.
So I would call that geography discrimination,
Yeah.
right? When I first went to Madison, I'd been to Madison. I had a girlfriend that lived in Shadbourne. But that was about it, right? And John Philosophus, who we're both advisors to Great Oaks Venture Capital out of New York, said, "Hey man, what are you doing Thursday?" "Nothing. We're going to go up to Madison and look at a few companies." Okay. And we physically went to Madison, and I saw what was going on in Madison, and I was like, I'm an idiot. I had no idea. Well, I wasn't a stupid idiot. I was an ignorant, innocent idiot because I had no idea. But the same thing is going on in Omaha, Nebraska. It's going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's going on in Nashville. It's going on in Atlanta. Atlanta's huge. But now you don't have to get on a plane and go and get to know people in all those places. And you don't have to have a $125 million portfolio to have something where you can get what I call an intelligent lottery ticket and invest and be an owner and take advantage of potential unicorn. You can sit on your back porch in your underwear and shop all over the country for legitimate equity investments at $100 a pop. Are you kidding me? So it's a completely different world. And I actually, you know what, you guys heard it here first. The difference between sending an airmail letter and texting somebody on WhatsApp, not even texting them, voice chatting them on WhatsApp, that's a good analog between the difference between looking for early stage companies 10, 15 years ago and looking at them today. That's a good analog. And are we worried about whether the quality of a video chat to somebody in Berlin is good or not? Do we worry about whether somebody's looking at our phone conversation or not? No. But think about that with all the kind of security that people have done all the homework, that people have sat in Washington and worked with the regulators since 2016 to bring this legislation to fruit today. You are getting a very well-polished machine in the crowdfunding space today to do exactly what you're talking about. Get your community together, see deals around the country, and as virtual as things are today, whether you're a service provider or a direct investor, crowdfunding is a big story. And if anybody doesn't know the difference between things like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and Regulation CF, please raise your hand and either talk to me or the folks here, because it's not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The other thing, Daniel said this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I just like to inform audiences whenever possible about biases that exist in venture. 40% of people that identify as venture capitalists went to either Harvard or Stanford. So it is an exceedingly narrow group who control a lot of capital. So this is an opportunity to democratize some of that. Given that this is Milwaukee Tech Week, you guys have been doing a good job getting ahead of me on a couple things. I want to ground this back in Milwaukee for a second. And so I'm going to start with you in this case, Daniel. I want to know, well, I'll share my experience first. I became enamored with RegCF, like it sounds like everyone on this panel has, just from like whoa, this feels like kind of the important change that's going to happen. And I just kind of keep talking about it in Milwaukee. And my experience is usually one of two things. Majority is, I don't know anything about it, please tell me. And the other one is, ooh, I don't know about that. I'm skeptical of that, particularly because, and I think this is usually good advice, is when we're fundraising, we're trying to minimize friction, right? We don't want to do things that are out of the ordinary because those are things that end up costing legal fees later, or those are things that derail deals and things like that. And this has, so I've had to kind of navigate that. So I'm just curious from your perspective, what has been your experience talking about RegCF in Milwaukee specifically, and what like message would you want to deliver to Milwaukeeans about RegCF?
Man, it's been such a fun journey because I think we're on the same exact journey. Like, you struggle with fundraising, you struggle with building a company, of not knowing all this stuff. A lot of what the literature, I said earlier this morning, a lot of the literature that is written about fundraising applies to Stanford grads, the people that are going to go sit, in a boardroom with Sequoia and pitch their business. This is a whole different type of experience than I had, even though I prepared myself with the tools that I thought were going to be useful. And then when I discovered RegCF and WeFunder, the idea had been pitched to me by the platforms a few times in the past year, but it didn't make sense for us at the time. But as I really started to read up and learn, I was like, wait, this solves so many problems. Like, why doesn't this really exist in the world? And you sometimes, to be an early adopter, you just have to lean into it and just go for it and realize that not everybody's going to follow you along, but you can be an advocate and you can convince people why it's a good deal. And I feel there's still so much reluctance, especially on the founder side, which I still find really interesting. Just with my Techstars cohort which isn't here in Milwaukee, but in Atlanta, just, me being the only company out of 10 that has even seriously considered regulation crowdfunding was really surprising for me. I think half of my cohort now is in some stage of developing a plan to get on a RegCF campaign. Here in Milwaukee specifically, it's been a lot of those conversations, just kind of like, I have no idea. I think Naveen has asked me questions about it. Naveen's a great founder that's checked in the back. Has asked me a lot of questions about it. Nick and I were like talking about it for work around the other day. You see the success. Joe Aliotto with Via also is, so founders just start sort of gravitating to those early adopters and saying, hey, this looks interesting. Like, there's money here coming into your campaign. Like, how does it work? So I think that has been the thing. I haven't had a lot of discussions with investors here. Part of that being that I, was been living in Atlanta for the past 3 months, and we decided when we got our regulation crowdfunding campaign to not spend money against it, to not hire an agency. We didn't have a lot of time, and two, we just wanted to put it out there and see what the world came back to us and see where the ROI could be. So to this date, we haven't spent any more than just a few $1,000s on getting the financial compliance piece and some agencies just to help, do tracking and things like that. But we haven't spent any money against the campaign either. So I think that's, there are lots of different strategies, and just finding the one that works for you is great.
Allie, similar question. What are you've made this decision. I'm sure you're talking to people in Milwaukee about it, and whether they're just potential retail investors, just general people that understand things, or even institutional investors. What are you hearing?
Well, I'll talk about it it's interesting. I think when I talk about it with my friends or my neighbors, they're all like, oh yeah, super cool. Like, I'd love to support you. Or, it's like yeah, I get it. I think it's when you get into the conversations with those institutional investors who have potential, I guess, the experience and the expertise, and they're the ones who have more of the questions. But the average person is like, oh, that's super cool. Like, I'd love to support you. Like, they're in. And it's not a hard conversation. We are in deep conversations with a New York investment bank right now, looking to work with them. And we were a little hesitant to bring up the fact that we were doing WeFunder. We just weren't sure where they were going to land. And we brought it up in our conversation, and they were super excited. They were like, this is amazing. This makes so much sense for you. They brought up the example of Clearly Canadian, which was a brand that, if you're over 40, you remember, which went away, but they had some diehard fans, and this company bought it, and Equity crowdsourced it, and these diehard fans who wanted that back it was like a huge success story. So we were nervous, and it turned out to be a huge plus for us. But like I said, I think the average person is like, yes, I want to support you. I know you. I love this product. Like, this is incredible. Like, where do I do this? And then, but it's the investor side that potentially has the, not pushback necessarily, but a lot more questions and hesitancy because of their past experience. But the lay person, they get it. Maybe it is because of, crowdsourcing has been around from Kickstarter and places like that before, but like, they're in.
Okay.
So I would say one other thing that could be particular to Milwaukee. I was going to pull my phone out and see what's in my portfolio for Milwaukee, but I didn't want to do that. As an investor or as a lawyer or as a banker, you probably hear a lot of people talking to you. A lot of people want to talk to you, or they're referred to you, or a client refers their son or daughter to you, and you have to take the call. And you don't know where to refer them. Holy smokes. Welcome to WeFunder. Because in Chicago, when I got started investing in early stage companies, we were so conservative in Chicago. If it wasn't real estate, if it wasn't mezzanine financing, why are you doing this? So I was kind of like, because you can make a lot of money. So it may take the institutional community here a while to catch up. Don't worry about that. It'll happen. It'll happen faster than it's ever happened before. But WeFunder as a potential source of referrals to underserved, undersourced entrepreneurs who are really trying to get started is a great way to say, go to WeFunder. It's also a great micro test, which I use for folks. Hey, I want to start this company and I'm going to do this and that and the other. Great. Go set up a WeFunder account. Oh, are they going to invest? No, probably not going to have people flipping through and saying, oh, that's a great story, that's a great story, it's a great story. It happens. But the bigger thing that happens is when you can take the people who already know you, like you, trust you, and want to be involved in your organization. That's the set it and forget it, add water and stir solution. And as a professional, it is a way to send somebody off and see if they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do.
It's a litmus test, right?
It's a litmus test. So you say to somebody, oh, my father's been a client of your firm for so many years, and they told me you would help me get started with my fundraise. Yes, I will help you get started with your fundraise. Absolutely. www.wefunder.com. Put a platform together, and I'll take a look at it.
I have used this from the founder perspective, and it was the most eye-opening thing is when our campaign went public, and there was a lot of emails from WeFunder out to the on the newsletters, and we started getting a lot of inbound from that. I directed other cold inbound that was coming in from angels and other investors. I said, hey, I looked at your website. I don't know if this is a great fit for us. You're probably just your junior person doing your due diligence, looking around, trying to source deal flow. Spend 15 minutes on this campaign page. I spent time putting together a coherent story. I spent time learning about valuations and how to set a fair valuation for my company. I did the video. I let Tony ask me all the tough questions. And I chose a lead investor and showed that I'm not just going to feed some conflict of interest. Are self-serving, like we did this the right way. If you can spend 15 minutes digesting and getting through that, and you want to talk to us about an investment or some other partnership proposal, perfect. It's such a great filter. Right. So it works both ways. It's a great filter for founders. Are you serious about this? Can you do these 3 or 4 things really well? And then for me, if you want the time and attention that's valuable for us, can you take a look at this? Some of those people dropped $250 in the account and said, I would love to meet with you. That, as a founder, it's $100, whatever. You want to pay $100 to meet with me? Perfect. Let's have a. I got 30 minutes. I got an hour in my in my calendar for you for sure. And so those conversations ended up being really valuable. And the ones that were just fishing for information or looking for deal flow that didn't make sense for them because they're a consumer app fund looking at us as a business service type company, just don't make sense. Has been really, really helpful to have that campaign and say, hey, just spend 10, 15 minutes looking at it.
Yeah. Forrest, can I take your spot for just a second? I want to ask him a question I think people want to know about.
Get it.
one of my dearest founders turned investor. We were on a panel, and I was talking about how much I love crowdfunding, and she was like, "Oh, crowdfunding, please." I was like, "What?" And she said, when she raised her first fund, she had to take a lot of calls from tiny investors who were always pestering her about stuff. And her concern was, she said, I hated to do that with 30 investors. I can't imagine what it's like taking calls from hundreds of investors. Now, as the lead investor in a small raise, I don't hear anything from the investors who wrote a check for $300, $400, $500. I get nothing. What's your experience been like with people who are blowing your phone up or taking time away from running your business from the crowdfunding platform?
There hasn't been. I put my calendar link in there. People can book a 15-minute meeting with me if they want to talk about an investment in WeFunder. And I'm happy. Most of my socials, I say, if you are curious of investing even $100, I'm happy to talk to you. I do my best to educate people what they're investing into, the structure of it, that they are assigning pro rata rights, so they don't have any voting ability. They're giving that to the lead investor, right? So I think being transparent about the process, setting the expectation for people is really, really an important part of it. That's why I love this build in public merges so well with WeFunder in general, or in the crowdfunding, because we can be transparent. We can say what we're up to, what you're investing in, what the expectation is from us and from you. And I don't have anybody nagging. The people that I have that maybe are contacting me more frequently, it's not because they want to tell me what to do. It's because they see the opportunity ahead of us, and they want to make sure that, hey, are you seeing this? Because I'm seeing this, or man, here's a great connection for you. So these are people adding value to me, not really distracting and taking away from me.
Thank you.
That's how it's been so far.
We're almost out of time, so I'm going to ask you to put on your prognosticator cap here and kind of look forward to the future of RegCF, which is something I'm personally excited about. I think we are kind of just scratching the surface of this vehicle in ways that it can be deployed. The example I like to give is, I think, particularly for university students, I think it's an amazing opportunity where before, if you wanted to be an investor, you were just pretending. You were maybe making choices, or maybe you had access to somebody else's fund that you could help with. Realistically, you could exit college with a real portfolio that potentially is demonstrating returns, which is great. So where do you see RegCF going? And Allie, I'll start with you.
I think you're right. I think we just scratched the surface. It's just so exciting. I mean, just to have the world, it's like the world is opened up, and if your favorite brands, allowed for a percentage of their raise to be from current users, there's just so much more, like I said before, stickiness and excitement and passion, and that customer that you have is attaching themselves to you in a way that wasn't possible before. And so I just think, I think a lot of companies, I would suggest a lot of companies really look into it, because it's creating that, like we're talking about, people want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of a community that's doing good, or a company that's doing well. And this is the way to do it.
Daniel, where's RegCF going?
To the moon. No, I agree with that sentiment. Just scratching the surface. There's so many things that make sense about this. The first few companies that go through crowdfunding that have multi-billion-dollar exits are going to be just like what they do for most tech ecosystems or startup ecosystems. They create new investors, they create new people that are interested, they create employees that are then empowered to go start their own businesses. And so I think that is going to be a vital part of this. And what I love about that is the first 280 investors in WashBNB right now, like none of them, maybe like 2 or 3 of them, right, would have been early investors in something like a Facebook or an Airbnb or something like that. So this is a true democratization of capital distribution, because if WashBNB gets to that $1 billion valuation and we exit, 5 to 10 years from now in a multi-billion-dollar exit, those 200 people from $100 to $1,000 are going to have, very, very nice returns, and they'll be able to say, and they're going to come from neighborhoods and from schools and from backgrounds that have never seen venture returns like that in their portfolio. That's cool, because that really, the downstream effects of this are going to be really big. And I think some of the stuff that WeFunder is working on and Republic are working on in terms of adding liquidity components to private shares, and that just means basically right now if you own shares in a privately held company like WashBNB, like you're locked up for at least a year and probably really until we exit the company or there's significant investor interest that are looking to buy some early common stock in the company. But having the potential to trade those shares when there's enough liquidity in a few years in something like a NASDAQ for private companies is really, really exciting and interesting. So it does seem like the future is very, very bright. And I think the regulation is keeping pace with that. And I think the companies like WeFunder, being a certified B Corp, are doing it for the right reasons, allocating capital in the right way, hiring the right kind of people, like classic. Everybody I know at WeFunder is awesome. I mean, obviously incorporating, people like Forrest too, whose hearts are in the right place, investors like Tony getting heavily involved. This is a great class and group of people to be working with and for. And so I think as long as we're able to keep the attention and the capital in the hands of these type of companies and people, the future will continue to get really bright.
Tony, where's it going?
What they said.
All right. We've got time for maybe